Hi, people. It's me again, of course, as always, Andrew Future, more in Ravenberg. Yeah, this is going to be one of the rare instances in which I record during the day. It's currently 9:59 a.m. in my location. Yeah, anyways, as you can tell, as always, Andrew as usual, based on the header, it's going to be guidelines for treasure hunters, miners, and seekers. Now, before I continue, the article associated with this video is going to be, and that I'll be referring to throughout the video potentially, is embedded in the description of this video. Anything of use you can find in the description and or at the end screen that I'll be referring to at any given point in time in this video or just overall. So now, everything that I'm going to be discussing is based on the on knowledge and the first-hand experience I have in treasure hunting. Throughout my career as an occultist, I've treasure hunted or I've engaged in treasure hunting a couple of times, so under five in any case. And when I say hunting, I'm talking about bare bone, bare back, just utterly brutal, as in since I'm not a corporate miner and it's impractical to expend tremendous amounts of resources on operation, minimal implements were used, and I essentially just, let's just say bluntly put or crudely put, took a shovel and I just went into the wilderness. And you can imagine how potentially deadly something like that can be. Yeah, so every time I did that, I literally and figuratively speaking put my ass on the line, and it was just utterly brutal. No joke, honestly. It's like having anvils on your back that weigh at least like 100 kilograms or 200 pounds, and all the while being constantly accosted by mosquitoes and whatnot. The majority of my treasure hunts have been in in the tropics. So think of a rainforest-like environment, and anyone that even remotely knows what the tropical wilderness is like, or just plain tropical wilderness, can immediately tell you and attest to everything I've said, that it's utterly brutal and inhospitable, that you really need to be ultra strong to be able to do something like this. Now, I'm going to read from my own article, and then I'm going to elaborate the way I usually do. These are guidelines, like the header of this post states, for the treasure seekers. Diamonds can, generally speaking, only be found deep in the earth, and the surface soil is hard by default. Hypothetically speaking, almost impenetrable. It requires tremendous force, for example, it requires tremendous force, for example, heavy equipment to make any serious gains. A large area has to be excavated in order to extract diamonds. Regarding depth, expect up to half a kilometer as an example. Yeah, so these are the general guidelines for diamonds. You won't, generally speaking, you won't find diamonds just like strewn about or lying around in a location. Diamonds by default can be found in locations where the ground is ridiculously hard. We're talking about rock solid, literally and figuratively speaking, rock solid. You won't find diamonds in general, to say the least, in like a swampy location or similar, a location where the soil is relatively speaking soft. No, it's generally speaking around mountainous terrain and the ground is almost impenetrable. Um, Gold compared to diamonds is easier to find, relatively speaking, with areas where the soil can be varied between slightly soft to intermediately hard to plain hard, with a depth of anywhere between 0 and 100 meters. Deeper only in serious and extreme cases in general. Yeah, so it speaks for itself. Instructions for those that undertake finding precious metals, minerals, treasures, and the likes. Point one, establish the area and confirm for yourself that there is, at the very least, a high likelihood of what you're looking for there. Point two, survey the area and go over the landscape in detail and all of its properties, whether it's densely forested, the type of vegetation present, the layout of the landscape, whether it's stable or unstable, mountainous terrain, etc. Yeah, so again, it speaks for itself. You need to survey the area first. Okay, if you're going to do that, something like that, you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to do this. You need to check out, you need to scope out the location. You need to know exactly what you're getting yourself into and prepare yourself for everything and anything, especially the negative elements, like worst case scenario, what do you do? Um, Point three, provided the area is accessible with heavy machinery such as earth movers, etc., cranes, and other digging equipment, go over the expenses associated with hiring someone to excavate the area using the aforementioned. Expect it to not be cheap. As long as it's profitable for you, then this is a valid option. All things considered, if you're on a tight budget and because of that, you choose to excavate the location in question in a manual manner, so with a group of individual workers, see to it these excavations, these individuals are experienced in what you're about to undertake, in the sense, in the sense that they have experience in working in the outdoors in regards to the objective and that they know what they're doing. You'll need to look into things such as needing a permit as well, depending on the country you're in and other regulations, etc. And then I have a bunch of links that will help you on your way, potential treasure seeker or hunter. So yeah, that's the way I went to work. To basically recap my own thingies, my own treasure hunting sagas, I essentially just got a group of guys together that have experience in the wilderness and that have experience in mining, etc. Not ultra experience, but again, guys that are experienced with the outdoors, guys that did hunting, fishing, they know in a respective location, they know the wilderness, and they were relatively speaking trustworthy. So I got like a group of 2 to 3 guys together, and we simply went into it. I planned everything. I use, in my case, I use my readings, all the knowledge as a magician, as me being who I am, the world's strongest magician, to excavate, I mean, to survey the area and whatnot. I already knew what those areas were like, so it's not an issue. And to check to see how things are going to go. That's the benefit. As an occultist, you can look ahead, provided that you can do readings, then you can see that, hey, like in a 1 + 1 = 2 format, if I go to this location with the mindset that I have, with with my intent as it is, and I do my thing, so to speak, I go about this the way I want to go about it, what will the outcome be? And I got it. And yeah, the times that things went wrong, in a manner of speaking, went wrong, are due to my own negligence, honestly. There were times when a reading clearly told me that, hey, you're not going to find anything, and all hell's going to break loose, which happened, obviously. But I simply said to myself, hey, listen, it's too impractical to find another location. Let's just go to the location because, it's too much work to find a location that where things will go well. Sometimes it's impractical. It's like finding a needle in a haystack, and it was simply impractical. So I was like, yeah, 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 let's just go. Okay, worst case scenario, there's nothing. But of course, in hindsight, that was not the best of decisions to say the least. But when you're actually in that moment, then with all of my knowledge and experience up to that point back then, it was a thingy decision. It was the most practical solution and decision available at the time. It's either that or nothing. And I wouldn't take it back. Just like anything else in my life, I wouldn't take it back, honestly. In a manner of speaking, at the very least, anything in my life, I wouldn't take it back. The amount of experience I gained from everything, in every sense of the word, knowing what the wilderness is like, etc., it was worth putting my life on the line. Um, but in any case, for individual treasure hunters, obviously you're not a corporation or anything like that. Corporations have their own way of working. The links and the videos that I embedded in the article associated with this video, they speak for themselves. In a nutshell, how corporations work is that they survey an area, they use like modern technology, etc., things that they have at their disposal that usually cost a shit ton of money, and they go about everything. They strike a deal with the government in regards to whatever country or location they're mining in or they intend on mining in. They make an estimate, like a financial estimate, because obviously it has to be profitable. It's like establishing a basic business. Okay, they're given projections by a financial analyst, as in, hey, how much, like, for example, gold are we going to find there? Establishing a gold mine. It turns into a company because it is just that, it's a company. They start hiring workers and it just goes on, heavy equipment, machinery, yada, 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 yada. It turns into an entire plan. When I say plan, I mean it turns into an entire terrestrial plan where you see like uh, thingy, a huge location with nothing but bulldozers and tractors driving by, and you're seeing other related buildings that have been set up there, security, etc. The area is completely closed off, heavily armed guards. All of that stuff is necessary. And then they get it like a projection. For example, financial projectionist tells them, or analyst tells them, hey, this mine will last us 10 years, for example, before it runs out, before the gold runs out. And in total, we stand to make like 50 million euros or dollars or pounds or whatever from it. And we'll have to spend like 25 million for that. Obviously, it's a win. They still make a heavy-handed profit of like 35 million. And it just goes on like that. And that's what they do. And for the rest, they do anything from blowing up thingies, from creating mines by blowing up the soil, just plain and simple craters, creating huge craters in the ground, which I've seen for myself, and then bringing the rubble back to a specific, for example, a machine-like process that crushes everything. It just goes on. They have crushers, they have everything, like everything is well thought out and refined. And that's how these guys extract gold and all the other precious metals and minerals that they use to the point where it turns into the end result. It gets sold to a diamond buyer or a gold buyer or someone that buys that. And that, in any case, that's in a nutshell how companies work now. This post is mainly aimed at individuals, how the individuals work. I strongly suggest checking out the links that I left in the article for types of mining. If you're someone, you're an individual and you would like to mine gold, but you have no idea where to begin, that's what this is for. Now, I already discussed the whole thing regarding how you go about, etc., everything. If you're not an occultist, then you need to find alternate means of surveying an area. If you suspect that there is gold, then in a location or diamonds or similar, then you need to find some way. I can't exactly tell you how, but you need to find some way in which you can be assured can be that there is something there and that it's worth the trouble. Because without having, for example, the knowledge and the tools I have at my disposal, it's a roll of the dice. I mean, even more so. In my case, I can literally be as sure can be. But even then, doesn't matter how sure you are, it's still it doesn't matter the extent or degree, if it's this much or this much, it's still a roll of the dice because you're left in a situation where worst case scenario, you don't find anything. That's why it's important that you need to decide for yourself, is this worth the trouble? As in, hey, is it worth it for me? Is it worth all the effort I intend on putting in and all the resources and whatnot? If the answer is no, then don't do it. End of story. It's that simple. Um, but if you're of the opinion that it's worth it, then go ahead by all means. That's how individuals work in general, because other than state-of-the-art equipment that costs a lot of money, like I said, ridiculous amounts of money that only corporations can afford, at least in a manner of speaking, just contextually put, then then again, it's a roll of the dice. It's like gambling because you've got individual miners that, for example, they go looking for gold. They spend like half a years, months at a time in the jungle or wherever they're looking gold for. And in the end, they don't find anything. And then it's essentially just being disappointed and then dusting yourself off and trying again. So you want to be you want your treasure hunt to be as cost effective as possible and as thingy as possible and as compact as possible. Okay, you need to view the money that you intend on spending as lost money either way, right from the get-go. And other than what I said earlier about assembling your party, like I said, you need to find a way to confirm for yourself that, hey, this location does indeed have what I'm looking for. You need to check the regulations in the country you're in, as in, are you just free to go about and do whatever you want? Or do you need a permit or something similar so that you don't get in trouble with the authorities? Um, and then for the rest, you can be prepared to do what I said, like the links recommend. You're looking for gold. There are different types of mining techniques, placer mining, you name it. Okay. These are techniques that people still use up to present day. because they're relatively speaking quick to they're easily accessible and executionable. Um, Other things that you also need to keep in mind is that you need to look over your back. You need to definitely the people you work with, you need to check to see if they're reliable because these guys might rob you in case you do find what you're looking for that is precious and or valuable. You also need to understand that, for example, if there are no regulations, the location you'll be in, the wilderness, is going to be like the Wild West. And you need to be very wary of other people of a like mind being in the same region as you because I know from knowledge and firsthand experience, or better said, observational experience, that if you, for example, if you're with a group of guys and you mine for whatever you're mining, then if there are like another group of guys nearby, not nearby as in 100 meters, like much further ahead, but they notice that you guys are busy, they might seriously try to rob you. They're simply going to wait until you found, for example, gold, and then you're happy you found like what, 5 kilograms of gold, yay! And then you're like, yeah, I found what, 100,000 euros worth of gold, 200, 300, almost half a mil, or on your way to half a mil. And then you think, okay, I'm gonna go back to the city, etc. I'm gonna sell it. And then all of a sudden, these guys just hold you up at gunpoint, and then there's nothing you can do. So you need to be, that's what I mean by looking over your shoulder and or back. You need to be very, very stringent when it comes to stuff like this. Um, and let's see, what else can I say for the rest? Oh yeah, you can also expect to have to, wherever you intend on mining, you can expect a camp there. So in essence, you will have to create a pathway to your respective location as an, okay, I'm going to mine here. You're going to have to clean up that area. That area will have to be cleaned, as in similar to a weed whacker. You're going to have to hypothetically weed whack that area, but manually with whatever you brought with you, shovels, machetes, whatever. The area will have to be clean and expect to have to camp there, as in you'll have to camp there, stay there for like, just like I mentioned earlier, for months at a time, because doing all of that manually is something that is a lot of hard work. So the people you bring with you, if you're not someone that is involved in heavy labor, then these guys do need to be. So these guys need to be like a buffalo. Okay, they need to be like an oxen that will pull the proverbial thingy, the proverbial plow. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it. You'll have to camp there, you'll have to bring rations, food, everything. Everything you'll have to do there. You will have to actually live there. So you'll need to make necessary arrangement, like pitching a tent and not some rickety ass tent, not a super makeshift tent. No. How these guys usually work is that they pitch a tent that is weather resistant for the most part. They sleep in hammocks. I know because I've done it as well. I slept in a hammock, not an issue for me. I'm adaptable, so I could easily sleep. But you also need to be you need to ask yourself if you're adaptable like me in the sense that you can sleep in a hammock because some people will have serious issues. As in, hey, I can only sleep in my own bed at home or something like that. You know, in general, it shouldn't be an issue, but I'm just saying, um, you'll also have to essentially undertake other measures like see to it that no wild animals, provided that there are wild animals that can come into your camp, will actually do just that, come into your camp. For example, one or two people will have to stand watch at night. And it just goes on like that. You need to be wary of bugs like mosquitoes and whatnot. Getting vaccinated for diseases, potential diseases, transmittable diseases like dengue and malaria, and it just goes on like that. Like it's very important that you plan everything out down to the last detail, and you do so by constantly going over your plan, at least periodically. So don't just say, oh, okay, I'm gonna do this and then no. It's something that you have to plan months in advance because every time you think about it, something else will come up. And that's how you prepare yourself well. You need to really invest a lot of mental energy into this thing, other than the obvious energy. And then that will automatically increase the likelihood of success. Now, once you've done all of that, then generally speaking, when you mine, for example, something like gold, um, then it when you find it, it's going to be raw gold ore. It's going to be mixed with dirt and stuff like that. So you need to go over the cleaning process again, like I said in the aforementioned links, and then in the end you'll be left with gold ore, and that is actually worth something. Um, and from there on, hypothetically speaking, it's a breeze, honestly. You just look in town for a place that buys and sells gold. There are globally, doesn't matter what country you're in, there are there are locations that buy raw gold ore. If not, you can easily Google um, stores that sell that buy raw gold ore, for example, and you should find a good deal of things. In any case, there are I want to say retailers. I don't know if it's correct to call them that, but in any case, there are establishments that do just that. They buy raw gold ore, um, and then generally speaking, these guys will melt it in front of you, or they're going to, if there is a bit of extra cleaning necessary, they're going to clean it. They're going to weigh it in front of you and whatnot, and they're going to show you how much it weighs and potentially, I think, also the purity, how pure it is, but I'm not sure. In any case, they're going to weigh it and so on and so forth in front of you. And then they'll give you a price estimate as in, hey, 1 gram is like $50. This weighs like 200 grams, so you get 10,000. Yeah, you get 10,000. Yeah, 10,000. Yeah. You get 10,000, you get 10 grand, and they're gonna pay you out in cash in general, unless stated or specified otherwise. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Um, Again, before I close off, I do need to strongly remind anyone that's watching this and is seriously interested, again, a reminder that if you're not okay with putting in all the effort and then in the end it's for some reason something going awry or wrong in a manner of speaking or literally to the point where you come home empty-handed, because obviously this is not something that you can afford to do literally and figuratively speaking repeatedly, because after like 5 treasure hunts your ass is going to be broke. Doesn't matter how much money you have, at some point you'll end up going bankrupt. So you need to ask yourself if it really is worth the trouble. You need to be absolutely sure of yourself, and you need to follow all the things I said and then some where applicable. Like it's not words, how well prepared you need to be. Um, so again, like I said, it's a roll of the dice. You need to be okay with not finding something, and you need to be okay with having spent all of that time, energy, and resources. Um, but something's got to give in the sense that you need to profit. Otherwise, there is no point in it. It's like opening up a business and then selling stuff, but something keeps going wrong in a manner of speaking, or literally, or anything else in between, or both, to the point where after, for example, having made 5 sales, you don't profit. You just spend money on creating your product and so on and so forth, or service, and giving it away. But in the end, you're at a deficit of like 50%. Your product, for example, costs $25 or euros and or pounds, whatever. And then you sold 5 of them, 5 units equals 125. But for some reason, like I said, a couple of things hypothetically or literally go wrong or something, and you end up with 75, whatever. Then you're automatically at a loss of 50. You just lost 50 units of value. And if you keep that up, then your business is going to go bankrupt before it even gets a chance to get off the ground. So that's what you can compare this to. So definitely know what you're getting yourself into. The guys that do stuff like this, the individual miners, again, for these guys, it's gambling. These guys are usually grunts. They're people that aren't educated. They're not well educated. They're not educated, let alone well educated. They're usually guys that are rough around the edges. They have a tendency to lean towards the criminal side, not offending anyone. I don't care. They're grunts. They're just grunts. They're essentially thingy. They're guys that aren't the intellectual type. They don't have good education and schooling, and aren't exactly like knowledgeable on things. They're really down to earth and rough around the edges and so on. And they have no other choice than to do so, you know? The benefit for them is when they strike it big, it's like big. We're talking about like hundreds of thousands of big. Um, but when they find nothing adversely, then it's just more disappointment, more hardship, and no other choice but to keep on going. So these are all the things that you need to consider. Bye bye.